All right, on to our next topic. This is topic 8.2, to define and explain internal controls and their purpose in an organization. Okay, so we said the fraud triangle, all these elements are normally present if fraud occurs, and really the company should focus on minimizing opportunity. So how they can do that is by developing internal controls. And we said that's actually now a requirement that public companies have an internal control system. So let's define internal controls first. So internal controls are policies or systems designed to reduce fraud. And of course, there are best practices and guidelines on how a company should do this. You can read about that, the organization that puts out those guidelines in the chapter. Okay, but basically what they have is what's called the internal control triangle. We really like triangles in this chapter for some reason. And it looks like this. Okay, so internal controls consist of a control environment where we're putting oftentimes even physical barriers to limit individuals from committing theft or fraud. We have to assess our risk. What is one of our biggest assets, right? How do we protect that asset? So for a lot of companies, it's either cash or it's inventory, right? So they want to make sure that they're keeping it, behind some sort of locked barriers, that inventory or that cash. Control the operational activities, right? Making sure that we have strict policies in place for how to react in certain ways. What do we do with cash? Do we deposit every night, every week? So we have clear policies and procedures. We then have either an individual or hopefully a body that's monitoring to make sure those procedures are being followed. Usually that's done, if the company's large enough, they have an internal audit department. And so they are the ones that are monitoring those control processes. But it doesn't even need to be a whole department. It could be a manager. It could be an individual or individuals. And that we have accurate communication of information. And usually that's through the form of company policies, right? That those are published somewhere, easily accessible for employees so they know what they should do in certain situations, right? And then we're mostly going to focus on the control environment, what we can do to keep our assets safe. So safeguard your assets, safeguard assets. And we want to make sure we're doing that. It's important for our investors to know that we have some sort of procedure to minimize theft, right? And if you saw in the reading, you learned that about 75% of theft can occur internally. That statistic was given for the restaurant industry specifically. But overall, when companies experience theft, it's overwhelmingly internal theft, right? Managers embezzling funds, employees taking inventory or petty cash. So most of the theft companies experience is because of internal fraud. And so we can develop a control environment that has procedures in place to hopefully protect a company's assets. And that's what we'll talk about next.